Andy Ansah's career is nothing short of impressive. Not content with becoming a professional footballer, Andy went on to star in Sky's football drama Dream Team before founding his award-winning sports consultancy, Sports on Screen. He's worked on some of the biggest sports productions on TV, coined an iconic football phrase, and even choreographed goal celebrations at the World Cup. He also still manages to find the time to be the chairman of SE Dons, a charismatic grassroots football team that's captured the hearts of fans across the UK with their entertaining content. In this episode, we delve into Andy's unconventional journey, his industry influence, and what it takes to build a successful career as an entrepreneur. Okay, today's guests take great pleasure in introducing a very, very old friend. We go way back. We're getting to that. Andy Ansah, welcome to the Absolutely podcast. How you doing, bro?
I'm blessed, Jay. And I'm honoured. I feel honoured to actually be here, sit in a room with you and to catch up on good times, bad times, old times.
No bad times. No, we can get into that. We've got stories. We've got history,
Yeah.
You're right, good and bad. And we're going to talk about, your progression and things you've been through. So really appreciate it. Okay, so let's get going. So first question would be, Dream Team, going back in the day, that's where it all started for you in terms of being part of the show, being an actor. I knew you previously, but we'll get into that. Explain how you got into that to start with.
Yeah, I think it's very, very, very important that I explain that journey, how it started. So my last pro club was Brighton. And by the time I was at Brighton, my knees were shot. And it was like, time to call it a day. And what happened, I'm going to go through the whole story. It manifested because a friend of mine was going through problems with his missus. So I had 2 tickets for a Robbie Williams concert. So I thought I'll take him instead of my wife. So I took him to Robbie Williams' concert. By the time I went to the bar to get a drink and come back, he was talking to these 2 girls. And they were body doubles on a film set. And they said they hadn't slept for 12 hours. So from that moment, believe it or not, I thought, I'm going to go into the TV business. I was still a pro footballer at Brighton, but I made my mind up there and then at a Robbie Williams concert. And then I started to actually chase that dream. And a friend of mine, God bless his soul, who I played with at Brighton, was an ex-Charlton footballer, Paul Linger, who died a year ago of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the show because he had come out the game, was playing part-time football, so he was an extra on the show. And I called him and he said, "Dan, no, if you're going to stop playing football, come. It's a laugh. Come and have a go." So I was going there as a 30-year-old man, but I was going there to learn the industry. Whereas a lot of the other kids, everyone else was younger, they were there to actually just have a laugh and pick up, literally, it was £50 a day. So you went from a football wage, and I'm supporting my wife and 3 kids, to doing 2 to 3 days a week on £50 a day.
Right.
But I had signed a contract with Farnborough Football Club, which was the same value financially as my Brighton contract. So I was in good hands.
Yeah.
I was in good hands. But went to Dream Team, and literally what happened was I got there and I realized that, oh no, this is a football drama and people don't really know what they're doing. So I started to, as directors would ask me, because I'm fresh out of professional football, what happens in the change room here? What happens there? Because this was only their 2nd series. Started to advise them. Within about 5 or 6 weeks, the executive producer, the owner of the show, Joan Hewland, called me to her office and she said, "Look, everyone's talking about you, my directors. I want to give you a role to start consulting." So then I started to, still in the show as an extra, but I was consulting and everything. And then within a year, I was producing the football for them. I was storylining. I was bringing new people in. I just taught myself. But what I used to do was go in and write on my hands terminologies. I didn't know film, MCU, everything that was coming up, I didn't know. So that's a medium close-up shot. I didn't know what things meant. So I would write things down. And then I finally got to a stage where I fully understood what was happening. But the funny and the hardest thing for me going into Dream Team wasn't the work, it was staying awake. I spent 15 years doing 2 hours of work a day. So now I'm starting at 7:30 and finishing at 7:30. So when it got to midday, I'm in meetings, storyline meetings. I used to do my usual, say, I need to go to the toilet. I'll go and sit in the toilet for 15 minutes, have a power nap every day for 15 minutes.
On the toilet?
On the toilet, seriously.
Oh,
and come back. But it was, my body could not adjust from being a footballer to doing those 12 plus hours a day. It was crazy. And using the brain in a different way.
Yeah.
And now I'm having to write things down and use the computer more. It was crazy, it took me a good year of transition to actually not sleep during the day.
So you picked it up and learned instead of actually going, to university and all the stuff that other people have to do. You learned on the job, you absorbed it very quickly, and you was able to obviously flourish.
Yeah, it's a big thing for me. I think I've always been one of those people. If I want something, I'm going to give my all and make sure I do it and make sure I achieve it.
Listen, I know you from way back, so I'm not surprised by your success. We was together. I mean, I did say we would touch on it. This go way back.
Yeah.
You started at Palace. I
Mhm.
started at Charlton. We got mutual friends. You was in a team, obviously, in a squad with Wrighty and all the rest of
Yeah.
it. I'm at Charlton. Michael Bennett,
Yeah.
Carl Lieberman, the mutual friends that I'm
Yeah.
talking about. And then obviously, you leave that club. I leave that club. I go to Lincoln. I think you went to Southend.
Yep.
Chrissy Powell, another good friend of ours, he's also at Palace. He goes to Southend. We all land at Southend. Barry Fry. Good times. I was only there a short period of time, a season. I was able to get in and out and get that move, but you was there. I mean, what we was doing at Southend, we was third in the championship at one stage, which people might think, have dropped out of the league now. We beat every big club. I remember going to Wolves, beating Millwall at home. We was very successful. The camaraderie, the group. But listen, I've known you before arriving at Southend. We'd had nights out. I knew what you was about. I knew what you stood for. So in terms of your work ethic, I'm not surprised that you was able to transfer that into a successful, business and as able to move on. But talking about Southend, Ricky Otto, we had some characters, right?
We had a group of hungry young footballers, as well as older footballers that were happy to allow the younger boys to flourish. Yeah. But we were hungry.
And we were hungry. Manager.
Yeah, and the right manager. We were hungry.
Fire coming in, just letting us get on with it.
We were self-managed. We managed ourselves because we were a bunch of boys that didn't want to lose. Literally, and we could pull up each other. It was like, I couldn't even tell you what an armband because it was irrelevant. Everybody was winners and different kind of characters. There was total stability. I remember one time in the changing room, I think it was Barnsley away, when Barry come in and he said, he didn't even exchange words. He barked some words at you and you did the shoulder, the neck thing. And I was like, I saw him take off straight away. I was like, you better take off, Barry, because if Jason chins his neck like that, it's problems.
Well, we know how Barry Fire would just come in and he was like, Dave Bassett or whatever you were, all these old school managers. I mean, I remember him, I think we played, if you can remember that pre-season, I turned up late pre-season, but I scored, I'm going to blow my own trumpet, but I scored a hat-trick basically in a pre-season game against Cape Town Spurs or whatever, left foot, right foot, and a header. And he was raving. You know what Baz was like? You're going to be the best thing since sliced breast and blah, blah, and sliced bread. And I'm like, okay, I wonder if Baz actually realises I'm suspended for the first game of the season, which he didn't do his due diligence. This is crazy, right? We got Nottingham Forest, first game of the season. I've been sent off at the back end of last season, done 2 games, got 1 more game. So I'm listening to Barry talking in the press and I'm thinking, he doesn't realise that I can't play the first game, So as we get to Thursday, the game's Saturday.
Yep.
I'm like, Baz, you realise I can't play Saturday? You can imagine effing you in all my years of management. No one's ever pulled the wool over my eyes. I said, listen, that's your fault, right? I wanted to get the deal done and ensure that I came here and join the club because it was a championship. I was playing in the 4th division at Lincoln. And you guys, listen, we came in, we was flying. First result against Forest was 1-1 on the TV.
I've got to tell you about that game. Do you remember that game, the Forest game?
Go for it.
The ironic thing was, imagine, when back in the day, when the fixtures used to come out pre-season, you're like, live on TV, we got Forest. Just relegated, weren't they, from the Prem?
Relegated from the Prem.
It was like, Stuart Pearce left back, I'm playing right wing. I'm like, I am going to run this guy ragged. I was rapid as
he had a bad start as well.
No, but this is what happened. I only found out about 5 years ago when I found this YouTube video. So I'm looking at him. I remember through the whole warm-up, he never looked at me. Just before kickoff, when he done the bit run back, he just looked at me then and rolled his shorts. So I thought, all right. 15 seconds into that game, he got booked. When he come through me. He come through me in 15 seconds, back of my head. I hit the ground. Right. I saw it on YouTube and bounced up. Do you remember I got dragged at half-time?
No.
Yes.
I mean, I'm watching in the stands.
Listen, every time the ball came to me, went off the pitch. My touch was bounced. And I came in and Barry was effing and blind. He said, if you don't, you can sit. And I had a little go, but I had an absolute stinker.
I got an insight because obviously I played with Pierce. I ended up going there, in March and did 3 years. His intimidation factor, right? And you've just summed it up.
And I'm a street man. You know how I am, Jay. So nobody's getting me.
I see this guy. So he never used to warm up. So every time we played a game, he'd warm up in the tunnel or just running up and down the change room and like grease up his legs, this, that, and the other. Wouldn't pair of shorts on. I used to laugh thinking like, this guy's taking liberties. But the fans built him up onto this psycho. And his first process would be, he's literally old school. He's going to kick that winger like into the stands and like GBH.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me when he said he give you a smack.
He came through the elbow. He got the commentator says,
and he got booked.
Stuart Pearce has been booked in 15 seconds of his first game.
And generally, I'm telling you, the games I'd saw, the games that I'd been involved with, he never got booked because he was England captain.
And he'd intimidate referees.
The referees would be like, come on, Stuart, you can't do that again. Or come on, Pearson.
It was a blatant elbow. I was doing a defensive header
people.
And he's come through me, bang. But obviously he knew, you ain't running past me today.
So he let you know?
He let me know in 15 seconds.
Right. And you went off?
I got dragged. at half time. Basil was there for them blind. I had my little go back and I was like, off. But I only just realised, the next game,
Millwall, live on the box, I knew then that was a big... Listen, I got the clips. I'm going to be sending you the clips soon because I score, you score, Ricky Otto scores, Tommy Mooney scores. But what we did, imagine Millwall being Millwall, I've always had this love-hate.
Yeah.
They always, obviously, it was hate. So we turned up there and Housey and Steenie, they used to make us, every away game, they used to make us run the gauntlet and basically run around the edge of the pitch in front of the away fans. And obviously they'd give us dogs abuse and we'd be like, right, just come on, you got to deal with this, you got to suck it up. And I remember doing it thinking, this is crazy. All we're doing is antagonising the fans, right?
Opposition
but
fans.
It clearly, it built up our resilience.
Yeah.
So when the whistle blew, and they had Keith Stevens, Rhino, man got tear up that day.
Man, I remember seeing them in the bar. You broke them up in the bar.
Listen, Rhino
his job over everything.
He got his head boss. Imagine if that's your player, the fans love him. He got his head boss. I dealt with Rhino. We scored. They scored first 1-0. Yeah. I scored to equalise 1-1. Then we just ran right. I remember someone throwing a cup of tea at Ricky, trying to grab his locks when he was taking a throw in. Yeah.
It's mad.
It was arms house that day. It kicked off. And then after the game, it nearly kicked off.
Yeah. But we was a strong team. I'm talking about on the pitch and off the pitch. We was a team that people couldn't play with. Again, everyone was stand-up. We had so many stand-up people in that team.
Of course.
But
some good pros.
Yeah, and good pros.
And good players.
Pros.
There was good players.
And it's seldom you have people that have that transferable skill. I look at kids now, I'm like, street kids who are playing football. I'm like, you get on a pitch and you're unable to transfer your skill set. Yeah. You're unable to intimidate your fullback so that your game becomes better. All of a sudden, you kind of curl up into this shell because you can't transfer your regular life onto a football pitch.
Yeah, I thought we was going to be the next Wimbledon because what we was doing wasn't in the script. So beating Wolves away, I remember it, icon of mine, the late great Cyril Regis was playing. Yeah. And he was playing up top and we got the result and we was like celebrating, went to Middlesbrough, went to Sunderland. We held our own. Third in the table. It was only because Vic Jobson at the time...
Contracts.
Yeah, the money wasn't getting paid. We wasn't getting this, we wasn't getting that. Just literally threw a spanner in the works to ensure that this team can't get promoted because it would have cost the club. You
think now the club would not be in the position it's in today?
Yeah, if they'd have built on it. Yeah. I mean, they built on the success in terms of sold Stan Collingwood to Forest and then Barry Fry spent that money and then bought in good players. But then Barry Fry obviously left because he knew the script.
He went
left.
to Birmingham, he took
and then I left and the players left and you would have been left there with Pally and Pally's a great player as well. We knew he had a great career.
It became a different club. Yeah, it became a selling club because of it. It no longer had them young, hungry athletes in amongst the changing room.
It got
stripped. It became a club where he's on this. It became about money. So and so would come in. He's on this much money. Well, how's he on that much money? We're buying him for this, and then the conversations were different. Back in the day, it was okay. How many games we got this month? This many games. We win this many games. We got it. Yeah. It used to be who we playing, who are the games. That was the conversation. Yeah. Because we were just hungry kids who had never made it to the top, but we were in good teams. And we had a point to prove that. Yeah. And the point to prove weren't to other people, was to ourselves. And that's what I think we had the point to prove. All we asked for was a stage. Yeah. And Southend gave us all a stage. And they gave us a stage without any shackles. Go and do what you do.
Fun period. I look back with great memories. And
amazing memories.
Only there a short spell, but, good players, good friends. Big times. Okay, so you're also an entrepreneur and a founder of Sports on Screen. So what motivated you to kind of start your own business?
It was, I think, going into, after Dream Team, I did, my first film I did was Mike Bassett, England manager. which I shot with, that was with Rick Tomlinson, directed by Steve Barron. And I shot in England, and then we went to Brazil, and I spent, God rest his soul, a whole day with Pele. Like personally, me one, looking after Pele for a whole day.
I saw that picture in the socials when he
And,
passed. I mean, big.
The day that changed my life, man. Like they say, don't meet your heroes, but what the time I had with him for that day. And you know, like all my life, I've been around big famous people, but that's the only man. When I got back to my hotel room, I rang my wife and I was crying. I said, you're not going to believe the day I've just had. And what I have in front of me, and he signed this picture for me, and he signed a shirt, a Brazil top, to Zach Ansah for my son, best wishes, Pele. And I was crying. I was flooding in tears of joy.
What have you done with that stuff? You still got it?
So in my office at home is my Pele picture, and my son's got his own shirt with what Pele signed with his full name on.
Love that.
And because of he was my ultimate hero growing up. You know, as a kid, you had them video cassettes, and it was the Pele video cassettes, and you watched his journey as a black man at the top of his game.
We all watched Brazil as young black people, right? Because it was like the Harlem Globetrotters. These people were just like destroying teams and incredible.
I think one of the things I was trying, because on an aircraft the other day, I watched the documentary on Pele, and I was trying to, and it actually rang home what it was. He was accepted by everybody. He was accepted by everybody. Black people, white people would always be around him, celebrating his skill, celebrating him as a skillful footballer, as a fantastic. And it was you didn't see that. Yeah. Don't forget, even after that, later, you think Cyril and all the black footballers what they went through. Pele wasn't treated that way. He was treated like a film star because he was that good at football, where football excellence took him above everything. And that's never happened since. Nobody has done what Pele has done.
Transcended, didn't it?
Yeah, and I've written, and only the other day on an aircraft, I was like, oh, I get it now. It was what I had bought into. It weren't just him being a footballer, it was him being accepted. It was him being accepted. Because when you're looking at old footage, there's no black people. It's all white reporters and everyone begging for questions from him.
Global ambassador, that's what he was.
Global, but they didn't see him as a black man. They saw him as a footballer.
I don't remember any negative stories attached to him. I'm sure someone could dig something up, but I don't remember it. And
amazing guy.
You know, we know that sometimes the media can paint this negative perception, and it was always, as you said, white, well received and very, very positive.
Yes, man. But going back, so after Mike Bassett, England manager, I'd done Brazil, came back, and I was like, this is kind of 2 years. I'm doing a feature film, 2 years in the industry from retiring from football. I carried on at Dream Team, and then I got a call from Danny Cannon, and it was like, I got a call from America, from Hollywood. He was like, my name's Danny Cannon. I've got a free picture. Well, there's a movie going called Goal. It's 3 pictures. I'm only doing 1, but I want you to work on this one with me. I can't guarantee you all 3. I'm only doing 1, but I want you to. So he said, I'm coming to London on this day. I'd like you to meet me. I rode my moped into central London, met him in a hotel. I think I'd done 5 or 6 years at Dream Team by now. Went up to the hotel room, and he said, look, how much notice do you have to give to your job? I said, well, I just have to, it's coming into Christmas. I said, I believe it's 4 weeks in my contract. He goes, I want you to do it. He said, well, I promise you I'll change your life. So I said, I looked at him because he just was an honest guy. I said, okay, I'm doing it. Came out, sat on my bike. I thought, oh man.
You took a leap of faith there.
Took that leap of faith. I called the exec producer, Jane Hewlin. She was in South Africa at the time. And I said, I'm going to hand in my resignation. I want to leave. And her words to me was something like, I thought this show was for me and you. It was interesting how she said it. But the way the show was growing and the way I was growing, in my head, it wasn't about me and you. Because imagine I was teaching people to do a job above me.
All right, yeah.
What does that tell you?
You wasn't getting the appreciation, yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to have to do something for me and my family.
Yeah.
So I decided to take that leap of faith with someone who wholeheartedly believed in me and was going to give me that stage to make it happen. And then before you know it, I'm in Hollywood. I've got an apartment in Hollywood, prepping, getting ready for a film. And I'm sitting there with 50 Cent, Nia Long. I'm hanging with some people, Robbie Williams, Jason Statham. I'm just all for football. Being a football choreographer consultant. It was the craziest scenario you could ever think of. But going and living in America for that little period of time made me realize I have to set myself up as a business. I have to set myself up as a business. And that's where the big change happened coming back from America. Because when I set the business up, I came back, I set up a website. And the guy, everyone in America was saying to me, what do you actually do as a job? And I would sit down with people that I knew out there and say, I'll do this, this, and this. They said, do you know the value of that? And when I told them what I was earning, they'll be like, are you serious? You only earn that? They said, you should be earning a lot more. So when I came back, I remember I bought that Apple computer, a little 14-inch had just come out. I bought a computer out there, came back to England with my wife and everything. And I was like, okay, I'm going to set this up as a business. My first phone call that came into me was Nike. Nike called, and it was a producer called Mehdi Bar. He called me and he said, oh, we've heard about you. We're doing a shoot with Arsenal Football Club. We'd like to see if you're available. I said, yeah, I'm available. And he said, what's your rate? Now, the money I was earning for 1 week on the film, I made my day rate. So I said, this is the money, this is how much it cost me a day. Which was a week's wages on the film.
Thinking it would shock him or just testing the water?
Because they were saying in America, you are worth a lot more.
Yes.
You've got to believe in your worth.
Yeah.
So I'm bearing in mind, I'm like, the film is finished now. I've got a gap between. I'm like, oh. So I said, this is the way. He went, oh, great. We can't afford that. Boom. I've never worked for Nike by then. Never. 2 hours later, the phone rang again. Hi, Anne, we found the money. Are you available? We're going to do a rehearsal tomorrow. I'd done that rehearsal. I'd done the shoot, smashed it. All I needed to work from then on was 4 days a month to cover everything. I can cover all my bills, everything's paid for, and have money to live. 4 days a month. I started to work with Mehdi for nearly 4 or 5 years through Nike at that time with him. And I was doing on average 10, 12 days a month for 4 or 5 years. And then it built up and got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then the business, my whole business structure built and grew. And now 18 years on, I'm still now working hard with Nike.
So what was you doing with the rest of your spare time then?
The rest of my spare time was building the business.
Okay.
I was building the business, looking at ways I can build the business. How can I bring in, how can I get body doubles? How can I now recruit extra footballers who can come on my roster? Yeah. How do I build this whole thing out? Yeah. And also understanding the advertising world. Because I would get certain scripts from Nike to doing certain things, and I swear I didn't know what they actually meant. I'm looking at them going, this is different from the world I came from. Yeah. Because this is a whole different ballgame. I was actually learning how advertising works and understanding the role I played within advertising. And that was a major. But I still to today, that I credit Paul Linger for bringing me into the industry. Yeah. God bless his soul. And I credit Mehdi Bar for believing in me and opening that door for me with a massive brand like Nike to just go and flourish.
It's about opportunities. I mean, people will claim they've never had an opportunity. I would like to think at some stage everybody gets an opportunity. It's what you do with it. You know, when I was given an opportunity to go on trial and play football, you know, I didn't slip. I didn't mess up. So got to be ready. We've got to be ready for those opportunities. And when they come, just grasp them. Yeah.
And I also think the opportunity is a key word. I also think that those of us who recognize opportunity and have flourished through the opportunity have to then offer opportunities to others. Yeah. So what I pride myself on my company, Sports on Screen, is we offer opportunities to new models and people to experience new things. Okay. And that's super important. On average, we offer at least around 150 new people get an opportunity to work in the industry through our company. And I pride myself on that. Even yesterday, I was doing a shoot, and the guy that was on it, because my daughters run the UK model agency of Sports on Screen.
Talk about your family. Yeah. It's a family business.
It's a family business,
right?
yeah. My daughters run the model sides of it. My son is is a choreographer as well within the industry. Former professional
started at Arsenal. Let's talk about Zach a little bit.
Yeah.
I knew him when he was at Charlton.
You knew him as a kid.
Struggled with his injuries. Yeah. Listen, when I went in at Charlton and I see him, I said, Zach Ansah, I know your dad. You know, when you have that conversation with people, I know your dad. I just know of you. I know your dad. And he was like very respectful, very quiet, good guy.
He's a good kid.
Plagued with his injuries.
With his injuries. He had 10 years at Arsenal flying.
Really promising player,
right?
He
got into England's top goal scorer from 15 with Raheem Sterling in that team. He was going to be big. Got in the Champions League. He was on the bench at 17 years old, Champions League for Arsenal, playing away, rooming with Arshavin and people like that in and around him. I've got pictures and videos of him with Fabregas and all those guys training on a regular. Arsene Wenger
So how did you cope with him? How did you support him? I mean, obviously that's a tough transition, right?
It's a tough transition, and do you know what? Even for me as a parent, it was heartbreaking to see your son go through so much. Because what a lot of people don't realize is that when Zach was 11, 12, he had a deficiency in his hip. And he's actually got a screw in his hip. He had to have an op. And he didn't play football for 2 years whilst he was at Arsenal at 12, 13. So basically, when your hips and all that, the bones start to and form, his hip was out. So they had to kind of shift the hip up and put a screw bolt in it so that it could function properly. So, and then on top of that, then when he got to 17, he got into the squad. And when he got the injury, when he done his ACL, obviously the alignment of his body changed completely. Then he'd been out for a year, he came back and it went again.
Wow.
And it just made he's been through a lot. I remember he missed the youth, I think it was a World Cup or one of that for England because he had dislocated his shoulder. He played again, it came out again. So he had to have a screw in his shoulder. And he couldn't recover in time to go away with the England team. So he's been through a lot. And honestly, like for me personally, it will sound strange to some people.
How did you pick him up? I mean, you had to pick him up.
But I look up to him because he teaches me how to stay calm and be respectful in tough situations. I look at him sometimes. I'm like, how do you manage? Because I watch him. I watch how he is with his peer group and with his friends that are playing football. And he's always cheerleading them. Go on, still do well. Nobody ever comes to me with a bad word to say about my son. And I look at him and think, you had the world at your feet.
Respect.
And even with how me and my wife are and the life we have, and the life he has even now, he's still not cocky with it. He's always there to help people. He's always there to help people.
But that's credit to you as parents. You know, when you say, he's teaching you, you've taught him as parents, because I was saying to somebody before that young sons, especially young black boys, they watch their parents, they watch their dads, they're looking for role models. So, you've been a good role model. I know like Carl Lieber and Michael Bennett and other, you've all got children, you've all got sons similar age. So you're all there for each other, good friendship groups.
And that's important. It's like the other day with Miles was playing at Man United. Me, my wife, my daughters.
Miles Lieber. Imagine that. So we know Carl Lieber, so we know the song Lieber.
Yeah, and then we're in the crowd. We hired a minibus. The driver drove us to Manchester United to support. That's what happens with friendships. You support because he's moving forward. Let's go with him. Let's go. Let him know that we are in the crowd there supporting him. Because and I know as footballers, when you know that people are there for you, it gives you a different buzz.
A little bit of a boost.
Super important.
You don't want to let anybody
not
down.
from afar, they're there. They've travelled for you. Super, super important. And I think, and Zach was coming to that thing and he couldn't because he plays semi-pro. He had a game, so he couldn't get off of it.
Yeah.
But he's super supportive in every way. In fact, he was doing, when Miles was injured with his Oscars, he was doing one-on-one sessions with him. Because Zach actually has set up his own one-on-one coaching as well. So he does his own one-on-one coaching. He has a pitch at our office. We have this whole surround and an AstroTurf pitch where he trains loads of different players from all levels, come in and do one-on-ones with him.
I think it's amazing that you've got the kids working with you. I can't think of anything better. As long as you all get on, which you clearly do.
It's blessed. It's a blessed thing. And there's no crossover. I'm a true believer in I shouldn't have to micromanage. I allow you to make your mistakes, but learn from mistakes.
Yeah.
But grow, which is super important.
So how did you end up choreographing South Africa's World Cup goal celebration? Talk to me about that.
This is how that came about. I don't know if you remember, but I did the show Wayne Rooney Street Striker.
Yeah, remember
So from Wayne Rooney Street Striker, I worked with a company called Picture Farms. And obviously it was Coca-Cola, Wayne Rooney Street Striker. So Coca-Cola then approached me. They said, look, we're doing a thing for the World Cup, which is goal celebrations. We want to work with the South African team, Bafana, and we'd like you to host the show. So it was like, next thing you know, I'm in South Africa. I'm hanging out with the South African national football team. I'm in training camps. I'm hanging out with Benny McCarthy and everybody. It was a job of a lifetime. It was the best thing ever. Traveling all over South Africa. I was in the stadiums, the new stadiums for the World Cup before anyone else was in them. It was just amazing, amazing trip.
I think I saw something once. I don't know which one it was. I used choreographing and you was putting the crosses in.
Yeah.
I was laughing, man. Like, come on, you couldn't wait to move out of the way. Let me show you, putting the balls in.
Let me tell you, see that. You know how I am with that. I remember shooting in Brazil, Mike Bassett, England manager, and it was on the onset was, imagine I'm choreographing. It's Scotland versus Nigeria. Right. So the extra I've got cannot whip the ball in. Oh. You know me, Jay.
Yeah.
And the heat was ridiculous. I said, come here. I took his kit off, put it on, and I whipped the ball in. And it's like, yeah, we got that. I was struggling because I'm doing 2 jobs now.
Right.
I'm on the pitch as well as directing
yeah.
at Football Action. Absolutely.
But that's where your expertise comes in,
That's
right?
where it
Just
comes
being
in.
that nuances and understanding that your body shape's not right. Let me show you what it's about. That wouldn't happen. That would happen.
And it's getting it's the little things that I didn't realize that being a footballer that I watched. I watched the little things that people's habits and just little things that they would do on the pitch.
Yeah.
And you look at, like I just said about you, when you do this with your neck, when you'd get upset. And I thought that's how everybody looked at things. But I'm always scanning, looking at little things.
Body language.
And I guess it's helped me in business because when we talk about reading a room, like I'm in a room all over the world where 99.9% of the time, I am the only black man who's a head of department. Yeah. I am the only black man. So I'm in a room and I'm like, okay. And nowadays, I guess a lot of people know who I am when I walk in a room. But back in the day, I used to do this. I used to walk in with a rucksack. I walk in with my rucksack and people, no one will talk to you. Imagine you're doing a production meeting where there's 25 people.
Yeah,
so
you look
art
different.
Department, everyone. No one would actually talk to me before because everyone's eating little bits. And then when we come to sit around the big tables, the director's there and I'm always sat next to the director. And you can see, I can see people now going, then the pre-production meeting starts. Who's talking? The director, and then it's me. Because the director was like, and sit next to me, because when it comes to football, you have to do the talking. Before that meeting's done, everybody, oh, Andy, would you mind if we have a meeting with you straight after this? Can we get? And I'm like, you're the same people that just totally just walk
Never
past
judge
me.
a book.
But it's a game I love to play. I love to
you
play
like to sneak in, yeah?
I love it because I'm like, let me see how you guys are going to change your attitude towards me. Because then I know who the individuals are I'm working with.
Yeah, good.
You know, I know who you are because you show me your true colours from the beginning. I'm always courteous. If I meet people, I'm like, how are you? But if you want to blank me because you feel as though, oh, you can only be talking to people in a position of power. Now, when you see me at the table and you hear me talk, you're like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
We didn't realise.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
no,
and
it's a good game
and it's a fun game. I love it. It doesn't happen as much now, which is quite sad because I go places and I've built a reputation and people know who I am now. But it's been a fun game to play on this journey. And what it does, it just reaffirms that life isn't rosy out there. It's still tough. It really is tough.
We've still got work to do.
We've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot to do. And that's why being an owner of a business, it's been a blessing because I'm actually in a position where I can make change.
Yeah, ownership.
I can make change because I own my stuff. Like my cousin will call, and I've got work. I need to have work experience. No problem. I'm going to give you this number because I'm not making it so. Call Seth, email him, tell him you've spoken to me, and he'll sort it out for you. Done. I haven't got to think about it. I ain't got to think about it. I own the company.
Listen, networking is huge. When we're talking to young people all the time, it's about your networking.
Yeah.
And as much as you shouldn't rely upon family and friends, it's always nice to know that they can help you, right?
Yeah.
So I've helped my children. They've all worked at Nottingham Forest, bar one.
Yeah.
You know, one's coached, some have worked in hospitality, but it's just giving them an opportunity again. You know, that might not be their vocation, but you know, why wouldn't you lean on somebody? We all wish we had those links growing up, right?
And they've got then it's up to them to take that opportunity and run with it. You know, it's not about just sitting down thinking, "Oh, this is easy." My children don't get it easy.
Are there any similarities between elite football and entrepreneurship?
I tell you what, there's a trait that I see with elite footballers, right? And it's a common thread with the ones that stay at the top because of, you know, I've worked with the best in the world for the last 20 years. And the ones that sustain it at the top have got this work ethic. This work ethic where what you do in your when they go to training, that's only one factor. It's the stuff off the pitch.
They live the life.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like these athletes will train 8 hours. And when I say 8 hours, I'm not talking about kicking a ball. I'm talking about looking after their body, private masseuse.
Before work.
All the things. They've got
work.
everything. Their life off. They're drinking specific water to neutralize their body. They do everything to the letter of the law. Yeah. And that's why they can play on to whatever age.
Yeah. There's no coincidence that Zlatan, you know, and obviously Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi should be able to, although he's a different animal. Yeah. But these guys have put the dedication in. I like them as good examples. I mean, when people say Messi or Ronaldo, I only go Ronaldo because I understand the work he put in behind the scenes to create that
and continues doing on a daily basis.
Player. Whereas Messi, we know has had, and it's easy to say that natural talent, but he was gifted with a talent which Cristiano Ronaldo wasn't. He was a fantastic player, but we saw the transformation from him at Man United to where he is now. You know, he's at the end of his career and he's still in fantastic shape.
But that's what's interesting, because I know a lot of people say, oh, he's at the end of the career. And I'm like, this guy will play. He can play for another 4-6 years.
I'm just disappointed that he's gone to play where he's playing. Do you know what I mean?
I understand that.
That for me is like, anybody who goes and does that, you're pretty much, you're writing off the remainder of your career.
I understand
which is crazy.
that, but there is a purpose behind the Saudi move, and it is purpose driven. I know everyone
other than finance.
Yeah, everyone looks at the finances, but over the period of the next couple of years, I'm privy to it because I'm part of that team.
So
I was in Saudi 2 weeks ago with the team, and I'm privy to the team. But it is purpose driven.
Yeah,
and what's good about his legacy won't be tarnished by this move to Saudi Arabia. I can assure you of that.
Okay,
it won't be tarnished, because a lot of people out there, and rightly so, I understand, because it's superficial. It's from a press perspective. Yeah. He's earning all this money. He's gone there just for the money. Yeah.
He didn't end well at Man United. I mean, forgetting that he was top goal scorer the season before, the last season, it just didn't. It didn't. And then obviously to go to the World Cup and not getting the team was crazy as well.
And a lot of that was circumstantial. And right now, I think that the rest of his football career will eclipse some of the downside.
It has to. People need to stop throwing mud at him and think. Let's not forget the numbers, man. The numbers are unbelievable. One of the best players to ever play the game of football. Not many people can say that.
And the good thing is with him as well, what really throws me, and I do get in arguments sometimes with people defending Cristiano and the team Cristiano, because he has the money already. He has no need to go somewhere for money. He has more than enough money. More than enough money. You can't spend the money.
But it's good that you can say that, because without insight, what are people going to think? And this is what happens all the time. People just he's money driven. Well, you don't know. If I don't know, I don't know. So what else can I think?
Exactly. And everything has a purpose. Everything has a purpose, and it will come to light, and we'll see it, and people go, oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah. It's good. It's good for you to give that insight.
And him as a human being, I'm telling you, one of the most kindest, one of the most generous human beings around. He gives so much, but he gives it without putting his hand up and going, I've done publicity. This. Okay. He doesn't do it for publicity. He does it from a place that's in his heart. And he doesn't. It's a lot of the stuff that he does. No one knows he's done it.
Yeah.
Like even the beneficiaries of his good, kind gestures do not know he has done that.
Oh, right.
There's people who are living and breathing today through gestures of Cristiano Ronaldo.
Wow.
But he does it from a place in his heart. And for me, that sums up the kind of human being. Because from how I know him and how I see him, it's a lot different to the public persona. What that guy who's always got the earrings on, looks a certain way, got the diamond in, and that the real Cristiano Ronaldo is a different human being. Hence why he has so many children around him.
Here's a question for you, because I just want to, instead of it's name dropping, tell me the big names you got in your phone, the numbers. You got Cristiano Ronaldo.
I'm not even. I can't even go there.
I'm not going to steal your number.
I can't even go there.
Come on, because that gives a little bit more.
I would say
that lets people know that's listening to this who don't know you.
Yeah.
Come on,
I would say this.
That lets them know.
If you're going through the people, like you can name the top XYZ amount of footballers, all of them will be relevant to me. All of them will be relevant to me. Like the other day when I was with Ronaldinho, another player messaged me saying, "Oh no, you're going to be running. Can you get me something done?" Ronaldinho, sign this for me. Boom, give it to someone to give to the top player as well. And that's because of relationships. And this is what I would say to anyone, and you know me already, Jason, that my relationship with you is exactly the same as what I have with Cristiano Ronaldo. I don't change who I am for no one. I'm consistent. I've been working with Team CR7 for coming into 16 years, since 2005, when we done Joga Benito, Zlatan versus Ronaldo. So that's a relationship that's been sustained from 2005 to 2023 and ongoing. May God continue to bless me that way. That's a long relationship with the world's #1 athlete. And sometimes I sit back and I kick myself and I go, this little black kid out of Southeast London who come out of a single parent home, living in this council estate that had no carpet on the floor, had holes in his shoes going to school to play football, is now standing alongside the world's biggest athlete. It's been a journey. It's been a journey. It's
and
been
letting him know that you used to play right wing for Southend.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Let me put the cross in for you.
That's another thing. But and then I talk about the journey that I had with Wayne Rooney. which was, Jay, the funniest, one of the most enjoyable times ever. Wayne Rooney, I put him on a pedestal. I'm telling you now, the jokes that you have with that guy, another guy who wasn't financially, money didn't drive him. Money never drove it. He'd be like, I remember one time we was on set doing Wayne Rooney Street Striker, and I was like, oh, I think my wife called me because we was booking a holiday in Barbados. And he was like, oh, you can have my house. Just ask Paul, you can go stay at my house. I said, wait, no, it's fine.
What, in Barbados?
Yeah. I said, Waz, it's fine. It's fine. But let me tell you a gesture about Wayne Rooney. I'll sum up the size of the man. This is the best way I can sum up my relationship with Wayne. When Man United were playing Barcelona in a Champions League Cup final, that was at Wembley. Do you remember that? Remember that time? I was in Madrid because I was shooting Cristiano in Madrid. I was in a hotel room. I remember it clearly. My phone rang. It was Wazza. Waz, what's happening? Ants, you coming to the final? This was his word. That's how Waz. You come to the final? I said, I'm going to try and get some tickets. He said, that's what I'm effing calling you for. I've got 4 tickets for you. You need to send me the passport names and the full name and passport and cover the passport numbers so I can get it sorted. I'm only having close friends and family.
Nice.
Imagine that, asking 4 tickets. I took my son and 2 of my work colleagues. We sat with his mum and his dad and his brothers at Wembley for the biggest game of his career at Wembley. 4 tickets. Like, you couldn't ask a player at whatever club for 4 tickets.
And he rang you. You didn't ring him.
And he rang me. 4 tickets.
Wow. Okay.
The guy is unreal. And people don't see that side to Wayne Rooney. Because there's all this stuff that the media have spread out about him. But the guy is unbelievable. And I owe Wayne a lot because he put me to he actually was another one that elevated me up. Yeah. It's like, if he's doing it, he's like, well, I want Andy with me. Like when Street Striker, they didn't have a concept for Street Striker. They had Wayne Rooney, Coca-Cola, and Sky. Paul Stratford and Wayne said, well, you need to speak to Andy because Wayne will only do it with Andy and work on what the concept's going to be. I came in, sat with Plum Pictures, and there we have Wayne Rooney Street Striker. So these guys, where I stood in a position of power. So I no longer became a want, I became a need because the athletes were like, no, Andy has to be there. So when you're a need, the powers that be can't do anything about that because you've become a need. You're not a want. If you want, I want a Rolls Royce. If you don't get it, it doesn't matter. But you want Wayne Rooney to do this show, you needed me there. Otherwise, he wasn't going to do it. So my power actually flipped because the athletes gave me the strength and the power to actually stand toe-to-toe with the big boys. And they would respect me because I was able to achieve what they were spending their money on for them and alongside them with the athletes. So it's an amazing transition. And it's only when I explain that to people, do people kind of get the journey and understand what got me to where I got to. But fundamentally, I would say to anyone is because I'm always consistent. I treat people with respect and I expect the same respect back. But I will start anything by treating you with respect. Like I go to shoots now. I was in Dubai shooting kids for 12 days in Dubai. And people go, oh, this must be bad for you. You must be so bored. I'm like, no. Every job I do, I commit to. Like these kids, they're the most important thing for me now because I'm as good as whatever job I'm doing. I will treat them the same way I treat a Ronaldo, a Wayne Rooney, a Neymar, and Mbappe. I'm treating them the same because every job I'm always consistent. I don't change. And plus I've got a duty of care because they're kids. I have to make sure they have an experience because what usually happens, I get to set, I do my thing, especially in a foreign country. And then, everyone goes to Instagram now. And then it's like, hold up a second. I always know when they've done because the next day after shooting, parents will be, oh, can they have a picture with you? Can he have a picture with you? I'm like, oh, they've been there. They've been there. So they've gone to the Instagram and they've seen the clientele that you work with. But I still treat everyone the same. I don't care whether you're big or small, whether you're famous or not. Like for me, I'm purpose-driven. I'm here with a purpose. And my purpose is to make you look good. But with kids, it's to make sure you have an experience. Because filming is horrible for children. But when you film with me, I'm making sure you have a filming experience because I'm a father and I know what it's like for children. So when everyone's going, oh, getting ready again, we need to go, get set, times of the issue. I'm like, stop. I'm like, do you want a drink? Get a drink for them. Listen, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. I actually stay with them. I'll sit and have lunch with them because it's important they have an experience. Because anyone that works for me, I'll hang my hat on, you had a great experience working with me. That's the most important thing. And I've carried that right away through my journey of filming. Even yesterday, working with a huge star who hasn't been announced yet. It was his first big shoot, and he's massive. And his experience was unbelievable. He walked out the studio buzzing. His agent was buzzing. Everyone was so happy. But before he come in, it was like, we have to do this, we have to do this. We make sure that's done. But, I'm just cool. I'm like, when he comes, when it's me, I know I'm not going to have a problem. I know I'm going to make sure that his experience on this set is going to be amazing. And that's where the longevity starts
and everything. Well, you know how to handle people anyway, so no.
And that comes from, I think that comes from being a kid. Like I said, growing up in South East London in Lewisham, you have to read people. You need to know how you're going to actually, especially if you need to infiltrate a certain situation, a certain scenario. So all the things I learned growing up, I've really just wrapped it around me and gone, use it in life.
Yeah, of course.
And it's skill sets, many skill sets.
Let's talk SE Dons. Okay, I mean, that's blown up, right? I mean, what's been the key to that success? How's it happened?
Do you know what?
And what's your role?
This is what I think. Don Strapsy, Big G, Chris, Ryan Palmer, those guys started it in 2014. And Don Strapsy is a rapper. He used to always include footballers in his rap, so all the footballers knew him. And it's mad because he was on my books in 2014 as well as an extra model. I remember at a casting, Zach was still at Arsenal. I remember we was doing a casting and Don Strapsy had come to cast and Dad went, Dad, do you know he's a rapper? He's the one that does all the raps. I was like, who? He said, that guy there is a rapper, Dad. Because I weren't listening to them.
Your age.
And yeah, exactly. And then what happened is I remember Zach had dropped out of football and then he went for about a year when he stopped playing. And he started to play football with some of his mates on a Sunday just to have a mess around. And then they were playing SE Dons, who weren't a good team, but they were starting to make noise at this time. And I said to him, don't play in that game, Ants, because people might want to kick it. So he didn't play in that game. And then about 4 months later, he said, Dad, I'm going to sign for SE Dons. I said, pardon? So I'm going to sign for SE Dons. I said, all right then. So I watched him go and come back. I was like, well, this kid's happy. So I said, let me see how he gets on the next week, come back. Third week, I said, I'm going to go and watch. And I realized what it done. It regalvanized him. Do you know why? Because it was like-minded people working for each other. He felt a part of a team again, the camaraderie. And then after a year, I looked at the setup and I had a meeting with Big G and the guys. And I was like, guys, you need to structure this as a business. And I came in as a chairman and we created a board and we structured it as a business. So now there's Chris is full-time, Big G is full-time, and Don Strapsy is full-time employees of SE Dons Football Club. We have an office built. We work, the boys work 24/7. We are a brand. We've got a 2-year deal with Puma. The guys shoot all different stuff with Puma. It's amazing. We work with a company called Phantom. The growth has been absolutely amazing. We get people from Australia come and watch our games. People from Canada, from America, from all over the world come to watch SE Dons play.
So where do you play?
We play
on a 4G.
No, we play on. We at the moment we are playing in the jungle, which is a place on just off Lehigh Road, which is the worst pitch ever.
Yeah,
and we play, and everyone believes that we pay the players. Nobody in our football club gets paid.
Okay.
And the other thing which is unique is that most of the team play non-league football. But none of them are contracted because you can't have a contract with a non-league club and play Sunday football. So they turn down their contracts so they can play on a Sunday. So these boys, you have to realize they're playing Saturday, Sunday. So they don't go out raving, get on the sauce and everything on a Saturday night. So they're ready for a game on a Sunday. Because every game we play is like a cup final. Teams come to beat us, wanting to beat us. We're top of the league at the moment. We're in the semi-finals of the National Cup. We're going to Solihull in March to play in the semi-finals. It's the biggest cup in the country. We're in the semi-finals of that, and we're flying. We're doing well. It's a huge business. Now it's really strange because back in the day, it used to be Tekkers. People see me and say, oh, Tekkers. Now I go places, they're like, SE Dons, up the door, anything for Paula. I'm like, this is weird. I remember shooting in Liverpool with Virgil van Dijk, and there was this soccer camp going on, and they were banging on the window. I'm thinking, why are they banging on? When everyone was SE Dons mad. Because sometimes you're like, is it because of Tekkers? It might be because it's Liverpool. I'm like, it might be Wayne Rooney's street strike. It might, but SE Don's crazy. People like
That's where
Essie Don's
social
crazy.
media's taken us, right? That's the profile. I mean, that's going to bring me on to my next question. How important is it for, for current players to get their social media profile right?
Super important, man. That brand building, because beyond football, where are you going to earn a living? And I try and explain to a lot of footballers, if you're a professional footballer now, just say you're fortunate to retire at 35. Your outgoings, just say, and it might sound strange to some of the people here, just say you're outgoing, I'm being conservative, $500,000 a year. That's being very conservative for a professional footballer. You retire at 35 and you're going to live to maybe 75, God willing. That's 30 years. You do the maths without the inflation, how much money you need to have saved if you want to sustain that lifestyle going through. And £500,000 a year is very conservative for a footballer. That is a hell of... Who's got that money in the bank?
Mm.
So you need to be ready to walk on Civilian Street with an understanding of how you're going to earn a living. But whilst you're a footballer, if you can build yourself as a brand, you can actually start putting pillars in place that are going to actually earn your living beyond your football career, because you built the brand in yourself.
Yeah.
And there's players, there's players out there that may not have been the most famous of footballers. Like, I give you an example, Akinfenwa. Look what he's built with his brand. He's built his brand out.
Incredible.
He's everywhere. They take him to the
mode.
Super Bowl everywhere.
Yeah, beast mode.
Very clever. Taken socials. FIFA. I've been working with FIFA for 15 years doing the game. And I look at what Akinfenwa's done. He's actually gone, I'm going to play football, but I'm also going to build my brand.
Yeah.
And he's built a brand beyond it. So he was happy to retire last season because he's still got a life. He's still earning a living off the pitch. And it's super important. And it's not being dull by saying to players, don't forget when you retire. It's like, I'm being real. Civilian Street as a footballer is a whole different game. And that's where a lot of professional footballers fall down.
Well, this is what we talk about in terms of transition. And you've been able to transition and be successful. And I suppose you need to share that message with whoever's prepared to listen, because not everyone's prepared to listen. That's the biggest problem, especially when they're young.
Yeah.
We know it all. But, I spend a lot of time trying to educate young players and say, look, trust me, if you don't want to hear it from me, speak to somebody else. I can give them maybe a case study of somebody who's fell off. The career changes
because it's
very
the greatest
quickly.
job in the world, right?
Until
And it's a dream. And when it ain't, it ain't. You look around, you're like, oh, I used to have a room full of friends hanging out here. You look around and you're lucky if the dog's even sitting in the room with you now.
Bloody hell.
That's the reality of it. Now it's like people have moved on to the next one. The media are only interested in the next one. And that's hard for people, because when you're as a footballer, it's regimented. It's like, I always say to people, it's like being in the army.
Yeah.
You're like, it's time to attention. You do this. Everything's set at times.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden now, everything's, there's no regimen. Nothing.
How you lose your purpose.
You lose all sense of purpose. And then now you're vulnerable. And a lot of players who can't come to terms with not being a professional footballer, because that label become vulnerable. So the label you chased actually leaves you vulnerable. Because when it's done with you, it's done with you. You're like, go and find your feet. There's no reserves there. There's no cushion there for you to land on when you fall. It's like, you go and find your way. And that's the hardest thing. So as great a career as it is, if you haven't got one eye on retirement and what your second career is going to be, how you're going to sustain your lifestyle beyond football, it's doomsday. It literally is doomsday. And I've seen players, and it's so sad when I see a lot of players and their close friends fall down. And it's hard to get back up, because it's a career where you earn so much money so young. You earn so much money so young.
It comes quickly and goes quickly.
Comes and goes very, very quickly. And it's hard to think about. It is hard to think about your future when you're 20, 21 and the world is your oyster. But 21 to 30 goes so quick.
When you're probably, your peers, your friends, you come up together, you accelerate quickly.
Yeah.
But they catch you up, because when your career's done, they've built up a 10, 15, 20-year career that they're now sustaining that money. Yeah. And you've dropped off. Yeah. So you accelerate quickly. Yeah. But it's what you do with that short period of time is what you're saying.
It's super important that you build and you start to own things that are going to help you live beyond your football career. Because we are talking about living, and a lot of people, they're breathing, but they're dead inside. A lot of footballers are dead inside because they've got no purpose in life. And I think you, like the PFA, you're doing a great job in educating these kids, but it needs to be a constant flow, because you'll go to one club and do it. Then we need that follow on? What's the string that follows on? What's the next thing that's going to come on?
Yeah.
What else is accessible to them? And I also think football clubs should have duty of care with, especially with the young players. So I've been having my mind's been really racked on how many young players are destroyed from a young age, 16. Like being at a club from 8 to 16, get released.
And they're not getting a scholarship or not getting a pro.
They've got nothing.
They're the key ages at 16 and 18.
And it's and you see them fall off. There was one, I know a kid who dad used to drive me to the airport, was my driver for the airport. He was at Gillingham. At 15, he was promised a scholarship. I think Brentford or someone was going to offer him. He said, no, I'll stay at Gillingham. Gillingham manager change.
Right.
They pulled it from him.
It all changed because of the manager.
He went from 12.5 stone. 3 years later, he was nearly 20 stone.
Oh, wow.
Just depressed and just got to that.
Jeez.
Imagine, his career was set. He had the choice of 2 clubs. A new manager came in, gone. Rug was pulled from under him. And just seeing that, the dad had to take time off work where the dad was depressed. It was like,
it
what
affects
do we do?
A lot of people.
It's the whole family. It's the whole family get affected by it. And I've been there with my own son.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when my son was diagnosed with his hip. And this might be the first time my son hears it when he listens to this. I was up night after night in floods of tears on the internet trying to see if there was any player that existed who had this problem, that played football, any human being that was doing athletics or anything. None of them existed.
Wow.
No one existed. No one. And I was like, no. So every milestone my son reached beyond that, from 13 going forward, I celebrated. I was like, he's done that. He's done that. He's achieved that. He's achieved that. And it was inevitable in reality, if I go back to him being 13, that there was going to be a point that they're just ceiling with how his body functions. Because imagine having a fused hip, you've got a screw in your hip, your body functions differently.
Yeah.
Although
it's going to pull you out of line, isn't it?
When he first done his ACL, it was a tackle he shouldn't have gone for. But who knows when or where that would have happened anyway. You know? But and it takes time. It takes a long time to come to terms with it, even as a parent, because you're trying to do the best for your son. You're also trying to come to terms with, whoa, this is, because your life is geared around training, football, pick up, this, that. You know, it's all based around that football, your son's football. Even my daughters know football back to front because they grew up traveling to Arsenal every single day, doing their homework at Arsenal, doing this. It was all about Arsenal Football Club and their lives around it. So while I'm flying around the world doing my job, my wife is ferrying my son and his best mate to Arsenal Football Club, and the girls would do everything around. They knew every shop, every restaurant. They knew everything. 6 weeks holidays. They was in and around that Walthamstow area where the academy was, spending all their 6 weeks holidays.
Walthamstow, I know it well.
Yeah, the whole...
Just near the Walthamstow dog track.
Yeah, that used to be there.
Just up the road from there.
But it's amazing. Like, people got to realize, when these young kids are in the game, the whole family are involved in that.
Yeah.
And then you get the other side of it where the kids are just living out their parents' dream. Or the parents have already believed that they're going to get a Ferrari, they're getting a Range Rover, you know? They've already... I've witnessed parents at Arsenal. I remember one mum saying, oh, when my son gets his apprenticeship and pro, I'm leaving work.
Wow.
I'm not lying to you. I looked, I was like, oh my God. You know, he didn't even get an apprenticeship. He didn't even get an apprenticeship at Arsenal. But she said to me blatantly, to me and my wife, yeah, when my son gets his apprenticeship pro, I'm not going to work no more. I looked at her and I was like, really? That's how... Imagine the pressure on that young kid. He didn't even get the apprenticeship. He went on, he ended up coming out of the game at about 18. I think he went to QPR for a bit or something like that. But how do parents do that? Imagine the pressure on that young boy.
Become too invested.
And I get that, encourage your kids to be successful, but that pressure, that financial pressure, it's too much. It's too much. And parents need educating. As much as we educate players, young players, I think clubs should, and I know Crystal Palace are doing a lot.
They do it, and I've spent times with, you have like an induction meeting, so if they're going to be taken on as scholars, you try to meet the parents in that period and speak to them about agents. And just try and give them the warning signs. Whether they're listening or not is another matter, but you can only pass on the information, do you know what I mean? And try and give them the pitfalls.
Again, I think consistency is key with anything you do. Consistency is key. And there should always be a place, a safe haven for parents where they can pick up a phone and ask a question instead of feeling like they've been railroaded into a little funnel where they've got to go down that route. You know,
No,
it's
100%.
I think right now, as much as we love football, there is a lot of downfall and a lot of downturn within the game. The casualties of football is crazy. You know, as much as we love it, and it's been my life, and it still is my life, I also know the casualties of football that no one really gets to see. You see it, but people outside who are just fans don't get to see. Serious. It really is serious.
You've worked on some incredible campaigns. You know, what's been your favourite?
That's another question that everybody asks. I think that's hard to say, but if you talk about the biggest campaign is Right the Future, the one where Wayne Rooney he's in a caravan where he's done wrong and you see him and he's like got this white beat up vest in, and that one, and that, like, when I think about Right the Future, it was, maybe today it's the most expensive football commercial that's ever been made. I think we made that in, I think it was 2010, 2011, to around that sort of period of time, with an Oscar-winning director, Alejandro, who is phenomenal. And it had Drogba, Cannavaro, Cristiano Ronaldo. Everybody was in it. It was a film. It was a movie. And I think that was epic. But in saying that, even when I did, like, not too long ago, I'll say about 4 or 5 years ago, The Londoner, which had Skepta, Michael Dapper, all those people in it. That was a fun commercial. That was a fun. So every commercial you do, there's something in it to hold. You know, you hold on to something. And who would have thought, like, I first worked with Skepta before he was famous for Nike at Juventus at a Nike event. And I was working with Michael Jackson's dance choreographer. I was choreographing the Juventus youth team while Skepta and Jeremy are rapping. How mad is that? They weren't even famous then. Way, way back when. And then the next thing I know, I'm working with Skepta on Nike Londoner commercial. It's crazy. The journey is just mad. The journey is mad. But it's been a blessed journey. And I think the answer to that question is I don't have a favorite. I enjoy everything I do. And it sounds a bit like cliche, but it's the God's honest truth. I enjoy everything I do. I look forward to every spot coming out.
You've had the passion, and that's what drives you, and that's what we're trying to instill in people, that they need to find their passion and not be motivated by the money. Because if you ain't driven, you're not going to go and achieve that, are you?
No, 1,000,000%. And nothing's out of reach. Like, I go everywhere, and it's really weird for me, and I've got to share this on here. Like, I'll walk down the road or I'll be somewhere and I'll look at someone and I go up to them. I'm like, do you play sport? And they'll be like, oh, no, yeah, I do this. I'm like, oh, join my company. Let me take this number and just write in and you can get some work. And it's weird, but I offer it to everybody. I see people, male, female, because we do all sports. We don't just do football. And then even people watching this, I'm like, go to www.sportsonscreen.com, join as a sports model. It costs you nothing. And if your phone rings for a job, what have you lost? You've not lost anything. You can only gain from it. From 5 minutes out of your life to fill in a form online and just email that across. You could be starring alongside a Ronaldo, alongside a Messi, alongside a Neymar and Mbappe.
But that's opportunity again. Sometimes people don't realise opportunity. They think, who's this guy? Like,
so I
trust him?
That leads me on to another story. The metaverse. We just done this World Cup spot with Nike, the big one about the metaverse with Ronaldinho, Mbappe. Everyone was in it for the World Cup. The guy who was the Mbappe double, he dried for Argos. So imagine, my production manager, it's his friend. He called him to, we need another Mbappe double. Can you just come in for it? He quickly stopped. He had his uniform on, put on a kit, done 5 minutes of video for us, put him in the casting. He worked with us for 6 weeks as an Mbappe double, back-to-back days. The money he earned was phenomenal. He's standing on set with Ronaldinho like this when Mbappe isn't there because we film at separate times, and he in face-to-face with Ronaldinho. Imagine that, from never done this before, you're now on set with Ronaldinho, all these big stars. You're on set with them.
Was he intimidated?
Do you know what? The way he conducted himself was unbelievable, because I thought he was going to crumble. And his name's Henry, a lovely kid who smashed it.
Brilliant.
And he done so well. Like, even for me, I'm looking at him thinking, you're not phased. But when Seth, my project manager, would say he was phased, but I said, well, he never showed me 1 inch of being phased because he was so professional.
He styled it out, man.
But that's how life can change. And the thing is that we started this conversation about, you've got to know when there's an opportunity. And you've got to be prepared to put yourself out. Like, he was prepared to pull over his van and take time during his lunch and come and do a casting. And it was a life changer for him. You know, a life changer. He could earn enough money to buy a car, to do what he needed to do.
Brilliant.
And that's the difference. You've got to be able to seize upon the opportunity. Super important.
Andy, I knew you would be. You've been a phenomenal guest. And the insight, I think, for people listening, they wouldn't understand the man behind the camera, who you've worked with. I think it's good to put it out there, let people know your journey.
Mm-hmm.
I think will encourage a lot of people in terms of entrepreneurship and transitioning from being a player. I enjoyed playing alongside you back in the day.
Good times, man. I loved
good friend, and hopefully we'll catch up. I know you're flying out. When are you flying off next?
So next week I'm Los Angeles, then Portugal.
Here he is.
It's all over the place.
Dream,
and then
mate.
France, and then back to LA.
Living the dream.
Living the dream.
Andy Ansah, thank you for being on the Absolutely podcast, and all the best on your journeys.
Love, man. Thanks for having me.
Yes, bro.
Love, bro.
Love
Wicked.
that. Thank you.
Awesome.